If you have the idea to start a show, you need to be talking about it now. You need to bring your audience on this journey with you.
Build the hype.
Yeah.
Do little teasers.
Do something today. Go all in and decide to make it happen. Don't question what content you're going to create. Stand out in the crowded online space. Podcasting is one of the coolest ways to do that.
Podcast has been an amazing platform to be able to do it just anywhere, in an RV, traveling.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fade, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.
This is the Content Capitalist Podcast, and my name is Ken Okazaki. There are as many ways to make money with content as there are people doing it. So listen in as my clients, past, present, and future, unpack how they crack the code to making $1 million a year or more while capitalizing on their content. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where I have conversations with people who are crushing it with content creation. My guest, or should I say guests today, are Jamie and Steve. And these guys are the first people who I'm actually interviewing while they are like on wheels, like we're actually in a mobile situation. I'm not, they are. And they have a really unique approach to helping people, not just themselves, but helping other people to succeed with content creation, especially, I believe, in podcasting. Jamie, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fun.
I'm really glad. Now, what's so cool is your approach to your lifestyle and how that blends with your business, and not just that, but also your like branding and public profile. You figured out a way to take these three things and help them like all point in the right direction, like parallel, where a lot of people kind of find conflict. They're like, well, I got my business, then I got to have my branding face. And then I got to, every now and then I get to go on vacation. And these kind of butt heads against each other, but you guys have figured out a way to do them all together, which is beautiful. Love to explore that. Before we do, could you tell me a bit, like bird's eye view? Who do you help? How do you help them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And thank you so much for that introduction. It's beautiful. And we really love to work with business owners and entrepreneurs and really help them bring their mission that they have for their business and like make it more tangible, make it more real, and allow them to, share their story in a way that their customers can actually like feel connected to the brand more than just like for example, like wearing the product or being a part of their online program, but you're actually able to like peel back the curtain and understand behind the scenes, like what it's like to actually get to know that person for who they truly are. So I think that's the main right? Like vision behind what it is that we do. Do you have anything to?
No, I think you nailed that.
Add to that, yeah.
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 Perfect.
Awesome. And what kind of businesses typically is there a certain sector like services or information, or what? Walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, more information. So a lot of the people who come to us are typically like authors, speakers, consultants, and they're really looking to build up more so like their personal brand, and they want to be able to like stand out in the crowded online space and be able to like engage their customers more and bring them on like a customer journey. And yeah, like podcasting is one of the coolest ways to do that. And then like having so much evergreen content like this, like we're filming right now, can live on for so long. And it's just like, I don't know, just the ability to captivate, like hold your audience's attention is like unmatched. So podcasting is incredible for that.
Amazing. Now, for those who are listening, like audio only right now, I just want to paint a picture here. I'm having a conversation. I'm sat down on my couch, but they are what looks like in an RV or camper, and they're a couple. They look like they're like models for some kind of like outdoor magazine, like I swear. And what's going on is I could see like you guys are out in nature. I can see kind of through the windows. Tell me, where are you guys exactly? Unless it's a secret location I'm not supposed to know.
Yeah.
You go.
So yeah, we're located specifically in Sedona, Arizona, and we're on a spiritual campground. And it's actually quite beautiful because we have just amazing different elements as far as like a creek right in the backyard. If we wanted to touch the water from where we are now, it'd probably take us maybe like 3 minutes to touch the water, and it's just crystal clear, and there's a waterfall and a stream, and then there's just tons of views of the red rock, of the Sedona red rock, and it's just it's quite picturesque, and it's a perfect place to grow, not only spiritually, but even just as as an entrepreneur, to kind of really just keep that everything quiet. And that's been quite beautiful.
I would love to add to that, actually.
Yeah.
Steve is like this morning, just to paint you a little bit of a picture, like this morning we took our son on a walk. It's like a 15-acre property. Is it 15 acres?
Yeah, 16 or so.
Yeah, like 16 acres. And we were able to take our son on a walk, and we went apple picking at like 10 a.m. And then we went down to the creek and made a picnic. And Steve was rope swinging into the water, which is getting ice cold right now, but he did it anyways. And so like that was our day. And we did all of that without even leaving like the comforts of our backyard.
Amazing. And let's go back to what was life before this RV lifestyle that you're doing. What were you doing before? Well, actually, let's go back even one step further.
Yeah.
Before you started podcasting or, putting yourself on social media and helping people the way you do right now, what were you doing?
Yeah. I would say like for myself, like Steve and I have been traveling for the past 7 years, but we were doing it different. We were staying in Airbnbs and traveling like out of our suitcases, really. And we loved it because it was almost like you got to experience like a different life each time you would move somewhere new, because you just like, you change your environment. It changes like your internal state. It changes the things you do. And so we loved that. But I would say...
And were you already creating content as you're traveling, like to support your business, or when did the content creation start and why travel?
Yeah, I would say it really started when I started my podcast, which was like August 2020. That's when I really started. We were always taking pictures, but it wasn't, I guess we weren't just showing like behind the scenes things. And like Steve before, I mean, maybe you should explain a bit of like what you did prior to this life.
No. I actually I went to school for 7 years. I got my doctorate degree in occupational therapy, and I did home health services as well as a skilled nursing facility. And we worked I worked myself in Maui, Hawaii, and we lived in Colorado. And doing that 9 to 4 it was getting a bit I guess in a way just kind of flat, and I couldn't really find myself. And ever since we started this travel life, it's been just really amazing, honestly.
Yeah,
really nice.
Just to like go back and like remember him when he was working that job. I mean, he would wake up, be rushing through breakfast. Like I remember him like grabbing Kylo, our son, and like grabbing him before he was finished with his breakfast, because he's like, we've got to go, dude. Like I'm gonna be late for work. I've got to go. And so they were constantly like this rushing through like life, and that kind of energy carries with you through the entire day, through the entire evening. And so it's interesting to like see that compared to now. It's night and day.
Total shift.
Yeah.
Total shift, right? So was kind of the chicken and the egg question here. Did you start podcasting to support the traveling lifestyle, or were you already podcasting and then thought, hey, let's see if we could merge it with traveling, and whether that's with Airbnbs or the current version of what you're doing?
Yeah, we were already traveling, and I think I really wanted a way to document the experience of entrepreneurship and of building up this business that would ultimately allow us to live that lifestyle of travel, of freedom. Although we were already doing it, it's just, I don't know, I always wanted just a business that was successful enough in order to free us so that we could just only do that. So that's
amazing.
It was more of like a documenting our experience.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, here's the big question. There's so many outlets, right? If you started 7 years ago, I think blogging was still a thing. Of course, Instagram, Facebook, now TikTok, blown up everywhere, and podcasting. Why is podcasting the priority for you over all the rest? Or is it even? Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Yeah, it definitely is the main priority. And the reason for that is because I feel, I mean, just like we're doing now, right? This whole entire episode, of course, is going to be chopped up for shorts, for YouTube, for all of the different social media platforms. You can pull quotes and carousels and anything that you want. You can turn it into a blog post. You can use it as a YouTube video. It's just like a one good place to show up and just do some mic drop moments and just like totally crush it on screen, and then repurpose that out. So of course that's why. But then more than anything, it's the listener experience is amazing. The know, like, and trust. And then the like ability to hold somebody's attention nowadays for that long to actually listen is incredible. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I always say too, as long as you're consistent enough to it, it gives you authority, especially. And I think that's what's given us the leverage to be able to propel ourselves further in business and in life. And I think the podcast has been an amazing platform to be able to do it just anywhere, in an RV, traveling, or if you have an office. It's that's the magic in podcasting.
Yeah.
Versatile.
Yeah.
Very versatile.
Sometimes I need convincing to continue doing this. Like, I think I'm on episode 60 or so just over a year.
Yeah.
But what's going on is, like, what I'm seeing is, even though at the beginning I had like a quite a quick like growth rate, I'm in this plateau, right? And every time I go back online, I see people like you, people like Gary Vee, people who are, have been doing it forever, and they're just like, yeah, you're going to hit a plateau until either it's in effect by yourself or by an external force. You're going to hit another growth spurt, but what do they say? You're either 3 inches away from gold, right? Or 3 feet from gold. Like, and I keep telling myself that, but the thing that keeps me going is not necessarily the gold, like the 3 feet from gold concept. It's getting to hang out with people like you. Like, for example, if I hit you up on DMs, I'm like, hey, Jamie, can I just sit down with you for an hour with you and your husband, and we're just going to shoot the breeze? I just want to ask you a bunch of questions about how your business works. And just, I just want you to just give me free information, free consulting pretty much. Could you do that? You'd probably be like, yeah, we don't know each other that well, Ken.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, like, would you allow me to interview you so that I can share your story with my 7,500 listeners? They're just like, that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
And now we're doing the same actual thing that I want, except it's in a different format, which benefits everybody. So that's why I love it. It's just, a different approach to having deep conversations that benefits more people. It's multiplying my time and your time, therefore makes everything worth it. That's my selfish motive around continuing the podcast, is being able to attract people to having these kind of conversations.
Absolutely.
Let me pivot a little bit here. When you help your clients, and you've got what I believe is what I understand, I checked out your website and your social media. You're helping people launch their podcasts, right? Tell me about when people come to you, they probably already know, I need a podcast, or I need to get myself out there. But for some reason, they haven't done it yet, or they're not doing it right. What are the biggest problems that you're seeing people have when they come to you knowing they need a podcast, and that you can just help them clear up right away?
Yeah, a couple things. Like, number one for sure is like tech. People are really freaked out by the idea of like all the things involved with the podcast. Actually, I'm gonna say 3 things. Tech, number one for sure. I'd say the second thing is confidence. They get really hung up on like, what am I going to speak about? Who's going to listen to me? And so we've got to go into like a lot of mindset work for sure. That's also huge. And then the third thing, I had it and now I feel like I'm losing it. Do you have a third thing? I had it.
Yeah, I would say the biggest one is definitely like, what am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
I think she's demonstrating that point right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It was all planned.
It was all planned. I think those are the 2 biggest ones. And time. That was it. Time. People are like, oh my gosh, well, how am I going to stay consistent? I'm worried that it's going to take too much time each week. Like, that's a huge one, because people already look at their schedules and like, I'm already so busy. I can't imagine like starting something and staying consistent for years to come. Like, they're like, I just want to snap my fingers and have 200 episodes and be there. But, they got to start.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you address these things?
Yeah. Well, those problems were the main reason we started producing people's podcasts. It's because they're like, okay, well, they don't want to spend the time doing it. They don't want to learn the tech. Well, we do it for them. Right. So that was the main reason we started that side of the business. But in regards to like the mindset stuff, I mean, that's what I love, like coaching on and teaching on. So that's where we added in an element to the program, which is more of the coaching and consulting realm, because I feel like they go so hand in hand together. It's like, and that's where I feel most of the podcast programs that exist in the world are kind of like not serving their audience in the way that they should, because they talk about priming and creating the perfect podcast. but the podcast
Mhm.
is only going to ever be as good as its host. And so that's where the leading voices, we really work to help the leader find their voice. It's like, how can you as
Mm.
a leader start to share your story, start to document your experience, and then combine that with the podcast that is going to actually like work, right? And so we like try to mesh those two things together. So you have the leader and you have the podcast, and now you have all the fixings for success.
Yeah. You have no
Yeah,
excuses.
Yeah.
for sure. No excuses.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be having the conversation with you in the first place unless they knew at some level that it's something that needs to happen. So if you just get all the problems out of the way, then you got a clear path and podcast success. Let's go back just a little bit and to how we first got in touch, because you were having a look at GoBox Studio, the all-in-one solution for tech, and I can see how that ties in with what you said the first problem was with tech. Now, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot a little bit here, but the GoBox Studio does a lot of taking care of the tech for you. One plug to the wall, one to your laptop, and you're ready to go. However, I want you to tell me, what did your first tech stack look like, as far as what did you need to get started and become a podcaster?
Yeah, I still actually have the microphone. I used a Blue Yeti microphone, like the one that's super simple. It's just like USB plugs in your computer. And then
Yep.
I didn't do video in the beginning because I was like, I don't want to have to get ready. I'm doing audio only for a reason, and I don't want to worry about camera and lighting and all that. So I just did audio only, and then I added in the video component later. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was the setup. And I actually filmed it right on GarageBand, just the standard MacBook software, just to keep it so
Yeah.
simple that even I couldn't mess it up.
And as far as content, was it a monologue type of thing or interview?
Both. Yep.
Okay.
Both. And so actually, I think and this goes back to what you were saying before of like, this is one of your favorite parts of podcasting, is like getting to have these conversations. And I feel like anybody who starts a podcast needs to start going after, like, let's bring in a little bit of Russell Brunson here. Like, I think they need to start to leverage their Dream 100 much sooner than people actually do. I think people think, oh, I just started a podcast, I could not go reach out to insert whoever they idolize. But it's like, in reality, that's not true. And people are actually actively seeking podcasts to guests on or to be guest on. So do you agree?
Yeah. I wanted to chime in if you don't mind.
Please do.
I was going to say too, I told Jamie all the time, you might get a million no's, but it only takes that one yes. So I was going to say to your listeners, get used to the no's, because that one yes could change your life. And then after that, you can get the 1% of the podcasters and the 0.5% and just keep growing that way. And just, get used to hearing no. And then,
And the yeses are a pleasant surprise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really are.
Now, the one thing that I do love about podcasting is that how it's different from like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, is that every time I put a video on YouTube, then I am showing my scorecard to the whole world. Like, this is how successful I am on this show. And everybody's just like, you got, a janky 500 views on the last video. I don't know if I want to show up. Whereas on podcast, that score is not right up front. People have to actually use some kind of analytics tool. And it's not always accurate either. Like what people say is their listener base. You just have to kind of trust them, because it's not a complete transparent system, since it's an RSS, which is very different. So I think that for people getting started on social media, on Instagram, for example, to get guests, to collaborate with you, you'll be judged faster than a podcast. If your podcast has a clear message and a clear outcome and a clear audience, then even if you're brand new, people are less likely to judge you based on your history. Are you finding that to be true too? That's just my observation a little bit.
Definitely, for sure. I think it's like a great place to anchor your authority. But then I think like, if you can focus on, obviously each time you film a podcast, focus on quality, get better every single time, but then focus on growing your social media channels. Like, that's where your podcast is going to grow, especially in the beginning, is like having an audience elsewhere.
So let's talk about that. Social media channels and podcasts. Like, how do you said it's going to help grow your podcast. How does that link happen? And how do you coach your clients in doing that?
Yeah. Steve, you better take this one. You're better at that.
Yeah, no, I'm really big on being authentic, and I think that's like the biggest thing about social media is that some people can sense that out of you, and I think that's where how we use our social media is we grow that following and we just show up every day and just completely be raw on the film, and then we have those call to actions to be like, hey, like listen to my new episode, new podcast, and then that connection. It's kind of like what's that called when
Breadcrumbs.
yeah, it all kind of like flows together in a sense where you grow your following on socials, and then you have that call to action to come find me on my podcast, and then eventually once they're on your podcast, they're listening to you in their car, they're listening to you at the gym, they're listening to you on a hike.
It's like a funnel.
It's like a funnel in a sense.
Yeah. But then again, like you don't just want to put all your eggs in one basket. Like I had only been focusing on growing my Instagram for like years. And then all my podcast content, everything was only being shared there, nowhere else. And then one day I woke up and my Instagram is gone. So it's like at the same time, you can't just rely on that. And that's why I was very grateful that I was always pushing people back to the podcast, because of course then some were able to find me on the new one. But I don't know, it's like a fine line of you don't want to rely on them.
Tell me about that. Your Instagram account being gone.
Yeah.
Like
that was
how did that happen, and how can we prevent that from happening to ourselves, the listeners and myself?
I wish I had the answer for you. I really, truly don't. I just know one day I woke up and it said your account has been disabled. It said I could try to get it back. I tried time and time again for months, and I never heard back from Instagram at all. No reason as to why, no appeal, nothing. Luckily, I had been using Asana, and I had put all of my posts in there just as a way for myself to just get organized and schedule it out. And so luckily, I mean, I had a lot of the content saved in there because of that system. But I mean, having like the pretty feed, having like years and years of Instagram stories and lots of followers over there, like it was gone overnight, unfortunately.
Wow. That is a scary thing. And I guess that's another difference between podcasts and social media is they can't shut you down overnight because you're hosting stuff in a different server, like a private server. And then it's just RSS controlled where it's going to show up on the different platforms, whether it's Apple or Spotify and stuff.
Yeah.
So you actually, you don't have full control, but a lot more than social media when it comes to your content distribution.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't even think of up until now. And I do have friends and clients myself who've faced something similar to you. Their whole channel just shut down for unknown reasons or unclear reasons. Yeah. And that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah,
pretty scary.
For sure. But then I think like how you handle that is really important. Like I think I gave myself like maybe a day to get a little bit upset about it. But then the next day I was like, okay, LinkedIn, here we come. And I hired a coach and I decided to like learn LinkedIn from somebody who was doing it at the highest level. And then started my LinkedIn, which is cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I want to make sure that everybody who's listening, if you want to get a look at her socials, if you're listening to the podcast, in the show notes, you're going to have the links to all her socials. And if you're on YouTube, check the description down below. Don't miss it. Quick question. When you started your podcast, was there a certain inflection point where, you're cruising along and you saw an uptick? And if so, what do you think? Tell me about that. What caused it? And how did that feel?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't check analytics a lot, to be honest, because I'm just going to keep showing up and doing my thing. Definitely bringing on like high level guests that people know, I think is really great. And then leveraging that episode in front of their audiences to have them come back to your show. I definitely have seen like upticks there. Also just episodes where you're really vulnerable and authentic. Like those perform really well. Or if you have like a title and it's like scandalous or like against the norm.
Yeah, like I don't like to use the word clickbait, but I mean the clickbait titles definitely have an increased view.
Contrarian stuff, right?
Yeah, those are definitely for sure.
One of the formulas I use that it always works is, it's like how, and then name of guest, did, and then impressive feat, in, and then like some kind of limitation, like 1 year, 6 months, whatever. And then with, and then the method or tool they used. And that's the format I use. And I'm just like, it feels like they all look samey, but it just works. I'm just like, and I just say to my team, this is the the format of the title. Now fill in the blanks by scanning through the whole podcast, and then they make like 2 or 3 variations, and it just works. And now
So
AI will just do that for me.
Yeah.
But it's once you find something that works, as entrepreneurs, we tend to just try to tweak it and make it better. But usually, if it works, and just let it keep going, right?
sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a question
Yeah.
about when it comes to conversational versus monologue content. How do you talk to your clients about that when they are choosing what format to do their podcast in?
Like if they're choosing one versus the other?
Yeah, like I think that's a question I get a lot is, should I be doing interviews with people or should I just be sharing from my knowledge?
Yeah, both. For sure, both. Like, because if you're doing an only interview show, you're not as much seen as the authority, and people don't get to know like what your expertise is or exactly how you can help them. Like you don't really have it's almost like, okay, it's like you have your own stage. Okay. And if you're never actually a keynote speaker on that stage, but you're hanging out backstage the whole time, or maybe you're interviewing other people, it's like you're never really seen as that authority figure. So you need to have your own stage. You need to use it and get on it, share your expertise, be able to riff, all of that. Then you also need the guests for positioning yourself as the authority. Like that's huge. Like I'm going to bring back what you said about authority.
Yeah.
That's big. I mean, of course you get these coaching sessions and you get to like meet incredible people and have really badass conversations. But like at the same time, at the end of the day, like it's really great for leverage and positioning and being able to get that FaceTime with other people that you probably wouldn't have gotten before. So you definitely find that balance. I think is really important.
Okay. I think that's solid advice. I only started doing solo content. I actually recorded a few and they didn't go out yet, and they're about to go out maybe in a week from now, I think. So that's it's good timing. Good timing. And it's interesting because in another life, I used to host large scale events, and I hired speakers like Tony Robbins and Jay Abraham, Robert Kiyosaki to come to my events, and I'd bring anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 people to speak on my stages, and I was always the promoter. I was the guy who said, "Hey guys, next speaker, Tony Robbins, next speaker, this person." But I was never the guy. I was never the key speaker. So I think that I carried that same kind of thought process and way of operating into podcasting. And only after a few people asked, like, "Hey, Ken, when are you actually going to teach us something?" I'm just like, "Oh, you actually want to hear me?" And it didn't even really cross my mind because like on social media and inside my own coaching programs, I do teach a lot of stuff, but just not on podcasts. And I was like, well, that was dumb that I didn't do that sooner. So I started actually just sharing some of the stuff that works. And thank you for the reminder and the confirmation I'm going in the right direction. One thing that I really want to drill into right here, and this is kind of like the core of why people listen to the podcast and what they tell me is when people come to me, like similar to you, we help people produce a bunch of content, boatloads of content. And a lot of times when they come, they're like, "Hey, what's the ROI? How am I going to make money with this?" And I got blue in the face saying over and over, like all the different ways that this is going to help them in their business. And one day I had the epiphany, like, let's stop trying to convince people that it's possible to monetize or to capitalize on content. And I just want to talk to people who are doing it, because I think there's as many ways to make money with content as there are people doing it. There's no right way. There's just so many ideas. Can I hear, what is your business model? What does it go from, like, how is it monetarily making sense for you to continue spending time, effort, and your energy on producing content? Where's that distinction from like something goes out, someone watches your stuff, to money in the bank?
Yeah, well, there's really two sides that we're operating in right now. Like we're actually launching a new podcast together in the coming weeks called Perceptions in the Wild. So probably by the time people are listening to this, it's going to be out, which is going to be insane. We're so excited. So on that side, that's where like we're really focusing on growing our TikTok audience, because we're sharing more of like the RV lifestyle and parenting on the road and how we're actually building up this business. That's really what we're doing on Perceptions of the Wild. But what's interesting is, like, for example, on that side, we have 0 episodes. All we have is really our vision for it. And we've already got a sponsor. We've already got gear coming in the mail that someone decided to send us because they want us to be representing their brand and their company on the road like this. So like monetization wise on that side, like those are the things that we're doing, is really partnering with the right people who are aligned with that vision and where we're going. Because the two of us and like where we're taking these businesses is like, I mean, this is all we do all day. This is all we think about. Like, we are so dedicated to this and we're already living that lifestyle. So that side of the business, that's kind of where that's at. And so we just see where it's going. And we know that like, that is our life, is like building this thing. And we're so passionate about it. Do you have anything else with perceptions before I move to the leading voices?
Yeah, no, I think you hit everything.
Okay. So like, we're really passionate
And
about
do you guys
that side.
partner on both these businesses?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's perceptions in the wild. So I think that one's more long game. That one's more documenting our experience fully through content.
Yeah, it's definitely geared towards super authentic, like just conversations in the wild.
Yeah.
Hence perceptions in the wild. So
Yeah.
it's like fire, you know, we're going to be sitting at a fire, having a
Fireside
fire.
chats.
And we're going to have fireside chats where we're essentially just going to be picking up this authentic talk that we have. And it's a kind of like masterminding. And we're going to be mic'd up, and it's just going to be super authentic and just capturing even just the crackles of the, you know, the fire and
Birds.
just the birds and all the things. So it's going to be
The
pretty
creek.
magical.
We'll be floating in the creek, for example, and you'll be able to hear like the creek behind us as we're masterminding. Because the two of us, once we get going masterminding, it's like, it's pretty insane. So,
And we have Starlink too, so that really helps with the internet being in the middle of nowhere.
yeah.
Just
You could be anywhere.
yeah.
You could be anywhere. That's amazing.
So I think that one, like, that's kind of our focus over there, is like, we're really
And
excited
that's
about.
being monetized through sponsorships mostly? Is that what the
Yeah.
direction is on that?
Yeah. So we're really just focusing on right now, just building up that brand. Yeah. And allowing that to be a reflection of our lifestyle on the road. Yeah. So the goal
Amazing.
with that one is to eventually actually just have that business cover all of our travels and all of our expenses. It's not there yet because we are launching it in like a couple weeks, but we're making
Can't
good
wait.
moves so far.
Give us the links so that by the time this goes live, people
Definitely.
can jump over to that real quick.
Yeah.
For sure. So that's that side. On the leading voices side, I would say, gosh, what was the question again?
Well, how is the content you're producing bringing in more cash into your business? Where's that connection?
Yeah. So for the leading voices side, that's really where the podcasting comes into play. So whether we're guest podcasting or whether that's been a solo show. So Steve and I's podcast will be together. The Aligned with Purpose podcast has been myself solo. So that's where I really work to position myself as the authority, share my expertise, teach people how to do things, and like guide them to becoming that leader that we were speaking about. And then, I mean, as a byproduct of that, you get reached out to, people hear you talking about a program, people connect with you in that way. But then we also have strategies on like social media and other different platforms that can help us, you know, enroll clients into these programs or into the production side. We just, every step of the way, we use the podcast as a way to either like get someone to know, like, and trust us, indoctrinate them into our process, or just try to build like a raving fan who's actually getting a lot of value from us and just wants to learn from us. And for those who are like, hey, I'm right here, how do I work with you? We have ways for them to do that.
Okay. Makes so much sense. Now, I know that you are, you know, inside of kind of like the ecosystem of ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson. And I kind of see like two different strategies in there. Well, there's a million, but two kind of rough categories where one is you have a fully automated Rube Goldberg funnel where people come in the front door and, you know, everything filters down until you get some customers out the back door, right? And then you got the other side, which is like create a whole bunch of influence and then organically start conversations with the, you know, the ripe and ready fruit. And those guys become your customers. Like if you were to kind of like lean one way or the other, which one, what does your business model look like?
Yeah, that has been the conversation that we've been having a lot lately. Because like when you're looking at like the organic side, obviously you control it based on the level of output. That's how much you're going to receive back in the beginning. And then eventually it hits this tipping point where now you have a community and you post something and you've got hundreds of responses coming in of people just like wanting to join your thing. Long game wise, like that makes a lot of sense. But then the problem is like the algorithms on social media. Like, let's pretend you built up this huge, incredible, beautiful Instagram and you're starting to hit that tipping point of a lot of people wanting to buy your stuff. Then the algorithm shifts and now nobody sees your stuff anymore. Like, that's kind of the problem with the organic game, honestly. But then if you go over to the paid side, if you can just learn to master paid advertising and send them to a funnel that actually works and converts, then that makes sense, right? You put it into dollar, you get out too. But then you got to kind of be careful because you could totally lack the community side. And that's what we've been talking so much about lately, is the importance of community. Yeah. Especially to rely on each other and to make stuff more sticky, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've been in multiple communities and I 100% understand where you're coming from. Like, I think the phrase I've heard over and over that really works for me is they come for solutions and they stay for the people, right? You know, people have a problem. I need a podcast. And then they join a community and then you start networking with each other and there's like 100 or 1,000 other people who really are on the same wavelength as you. And you're like, I'm never leaving, you know, like, and, you know, just the credit card month after month after month. I don't know how much I've paid, probably close to $1 million in different masterminds and programs I've been into. And it's probably the best money I've spent in my life. And it's when you find the right people that you want to hang out with and the right influencers, like you choose who influences you, that's worth everything. And being able to have the kind of connection with them where you could just kind of download what is the latest thing that they're thinking and then just, you know, see what works and if you want to use it. Yeah, that's for me, absolutely. The community is everything. Now, I'd like to hear from you, like from a complete starter perspective. Somebody's not started a podcast and they know they need to. They see their colleagues, competitors, friends doing it. What are the first, let's say, 3 to 5 practical, logical steps people can do to get started? I mean, this is, of course, step 1 needs to be click the link below and find out where to, you know, hear this directly from you in another format. But for this podcast, like, so we'll get step 1 out of the way, click the link below, follow her on social media. Step 2, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, and feel free to jump in if you want, but I think first off, it's like clarity, right? Like, I think if you don't have clarity for something, it's really hard to start it. But it doesn't need to take forever, okay? Like, there's some people who they're like, I want to start a podcast, and they set a date for like 6 months in the future. And I'm like, okay, no, set it for like 4 weeks from today or 2, whatever you want to do. And then just start like building up an audience. Like, if you watch what we're doing, we're launching this show right now. We've already built up a TikTok audience. We're already now starting an Instagram, and like, we're posting content, we're having people start to get to know us. And I think so much emphasis is put on like after the launch, people just want to get consistent. It's like, no, if you have the idea to start a show, you need to be talking about it now. You need to bring your audience on this journey with you. Share your cover art, share your music, start to talk about your story, right?
Yeah, build the hype. I mean, do little teasers. Definitely little teasers.
Bring them on the journey with you, like get them invested into it. And like, our plan that we have is like, as soon as this goes live and launches, we're going to get into new and noteworthy. We're going to do that because we put in so much of the groundwork before, and we're just looking to take this thing off in the first couple of weeks post doing it. And plus, it's like, we can't go launching podcasts for our clients and get them into the top 10% globally in just a couple weeks and not do the same for ourselves. So we've got to show them how to do it.
Yeah. And I would say one more thing to that part too is get someone to hold you accountable, because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this on this date. And it helps to have a date too. Definitely. But have somebody, even if you go live on your Instagram or Facebook, be like, guys, on this date, I'm going to start this podcast. Just have the viewers hold you accountable. Because when you don't do it, it's going to obviously, at that point, you're going to feel silly not doing it. So
for sure.
Get some.
Absolutely. And when you say, is that a service you provide where there's some accountability involved?
Definitely.
Sure. Accountability is big.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Now, something caught my ear, and I saw this in some copy on your social media as well. Top 10% globally. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So as you said before, the analytics side is really difficult to track with a podcast. Listen Notes is a website that we're able to refer back to. That's where we go to actually and I don't know if you're doing this right now. If you're not, it's a good place to actually find podcasts to guest on. And like what we teach our clients is like, if you're looking on listen notes, like let's say you've got a podcast that's like top 5% globally. If you go on there and you're looking at podcasts that are either top 5% or like top 1% or top, you're always looking at like the level at which your show is or better. And like, that's how we've really worked to like ascend in that sense, and like be looking at shows that can help you level up your show. Really.
So by
we
guesting
kind of
on a show that has a large audience, you're sending some of that traffic back to yourself, because people listen, they Google your name, they say, oh, they've got a podcast too.
Yeah.
And because the listener is a podcast listener, then you already know their mode of consumption, right?
Yeah.
Is that the idea here?
Exactly.
I would say that's the fastest way to leverage to get down to like 1% or so, is to just leverage your audience and leverage your guest for sure.
Well, and I think that's a big
So
part
I have heard of Listen Notes, but I haven't used it. So it's a good tip. Is this a paid or free program?
It's free. It's free.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So like then they rank your podcast based on like listener retention, but then also based on like really they're tracking what they can track, which is like Google a lot of times, and like how often you're showing up in searches, how many people are searching for you, and they're tracking this website. So when we say top 10% of podcasts globally, we're basing it off of listen notes and off of the listener scores there. And we're taking somebody who doesn't have a podcast at all, and we're helping them rank there, because that's where a lot of the PR companies look when they're looking for podcast guests. So they'll find you there. It's a way to just anchor in your authority when you have a podcast in the top 10% or higher.
Well, I better get registered there and take your advice on this.
Definitely.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about what you're seeing shifting? And in terms of there are things that used to work really well and don't work as well anymore. Things that completely disappear sometimes, right? And then things that you're experimenting with that might be big. Any thoughts on that you could share with us that it's not top secret? Well, even if it is, my audiences will just get them to, verbally, nod their head like NDA, please.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm curious what you would say, but I think what's working really well right now is being super authentic. Like what we're speaking about for Perceptions in the Wild, of like us filming Creekside because that's where we're feeling most alive and most inspired. Like that's what's going to resonate with people the most. And like, sure, it's not going to be perfect studio sound. Actually, will be with the device that's arriving now, but it will be perfect studio sound. But you're going to hear things in the background that are going to make the listener feel like they're a part of that experience. So like having it be more natural in bringing someone into your life versus making them almost feel like they're just like watching you on social media. I don't think that's working anymore. I think like things being scripted, I think things being like not as authentic, that just doesn't work, and people don't want that. They want to see the real, the raw, the vulnerable. Like that's what works. And so you've got to document your experience. You've got to be like,
I think you got to create contrast between you and AI is what you're trying to.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but with AI, everybody questions like, is this real or is it AI? And I've seen influencers who are doing really well by literally calling themselves out and say, hey, this is an AI ad. This video is a clone of myself. And, people like that to some level. It's like, oh, that's cool. But if you want to stand out, I think the further away you position yourself, people are going to have to, know right away, oh, this is definitely not AI. Like AI is not at this level yet, or at least won't be for another decade, hopefully. Is that what you're trying to do here? Like, just like be so human, be so real that there's never a question in someone's mind. Like, is this a ChatGPT script they're reading? Like, that's not what you want them to be asking themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like what you were kind of talking about, how we've meshed together like life and business and then living on the road. Like that's how anybody can do it. Like you really just have to get super clear on exactly what is the life that you want to be living. Start living it. Like that's what we did January 1st. We were like, we want to go move into a rig and we want to travel North America. So we put in our notice, and January 1st, we moved into it, and we did all that in 30 days. In 30 days, we decided, hey, we're going to change our entire lives. And so we did. And so we gave ourselves such a small deadline. we had to buy a truck, we had to buy a rig, we had to figure out where we're going to go.
We had to put a hitch.
So do you guys have a permanent home somewhere, or is
No.
this really it?
This is it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So there's no home base. Home base is on wheels.
Yeah, exactly.
The real deal.
So it's like
Wow.
we had to get crystal clear on what do we want our life to look like? What do we want it to feel like? We had to start living that. And then it became naturally like work. And I'll be honest, like for a while, it felt like really difficult to let go of like that 9 to 5 mentality of like, you got to be creating content. That's been really hard to start like making that shift to know we've got to document exactly what we're doing. But then the beautiful thing that both of us are like just like thriving and loving now is the fact that like that merged everything together. The fact that now we are documenting this life that we've created, and that's allowing the business to grow. That's the marriage of the two.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about team, because I know that, you know, producing a show takes a bit of team, as far whether it's yourselves or like when you're creating the graphics, the, you know, actual posting, scheduling, editing short form content from your longer form content. And obviously your clients, you're not doing everything yourselves for your clients in your camper.
Yeah.
What's it look like as far as operations go?
Well, this guy, you want to tell what you do?
I do, yeah. So yeah, I'm a client success manager. I think that's really important.
No.
What?
No, not that. This guy is, so we never knew this, right? I always was like a one woman show. I was like, I'm the visionary, I'm the integrator. I was showing up on camera. I was building the funnels, doing all that. And then I realized like, this guy's the visionary. It was so hard for me to understand. And now he comes into the picture.
Yeah.
Like you as the visionary is insane. Like,
yeah, I would say we take it from two perspectives, especially with the team side. Like we have the integrator side, of course, that needs to get in there and do all the things. And then we have the other side that just like doesn't touch anything or do anything, but they just like essentially is all in their head and they just kind of come up with the game plan per se. And that's where I think we really discovered our superpowers is what we know, which one is which.
That's beautiful.
Been really beautiful.
That's beautiful.
All right.
That's actually really interesting because my son works with me in my business, and that's kind of the relationship we have. I've got all the ideas. I'm the one that talks to people like you. I'm the one who coaches the clients, but he's the one who actually can take these ideas and build the funnels, run the ads, hire the people, create the SOPs.
Yeah.
And I'd never experienced that until like I didn't know it could be that good until I hired him to work in my business, and eventually he'll probably be running the whole thing without me. And I'd get paid just to show up every now and then and say, "Hey, it's me," you know, kind of thing. That's beautiful that you found that. And so, are you the one that's also managing the actual production of the podcast for your clients and the like? So tell me about that, because I know that when you're on the podcast, you're like the swan on top of the lake. Someone's got to be paddling lightning fast to keep you looking, you know, like you're gliding across the water.
Yeah, he's, if you could think of Steve as kind of like the consultant or like the coach in the business.
Yep.
That's what he does. Like I would come to him, and this actually is pretty recent that we really started leveraging this relationship in this way, by the way. It was when we wrote out both of our strengths and weaknesses and realized that both of us had the complete opposite ones. And we're like, okay, there's something here. So I will now go to Steve and be like, okay, you know exactly what's happening here. Like, what do I need to focus on next? And that was something that before I would be figuring out, or I'd be so deep in the trenches building things that I would kind of lose sight of where we were going or what was most important now. And so now he'll be able to tell me like, this is what's most important right now and what you should be focusing on. So that's kind of where he comes in to kind of like steer the ship. But then I'm really doing everything else. Well, me and then obviously like my team. I've got people underneath me doing things, but I'm really steering the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
She looks over everything.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, we're coming close to the top of the hour. I got to wrap this up real soon. Any last words of advice for people who have, like, you said something earlier. You said that you work on mindset a lot with your clients, right? Give us a little bit of that juju on like somebody who's like, you know, they got a little anal retention. They haven't just quite started yet. what are you going to say to that person who needs to get their voice out there, become a leading voice, and they haven't done it yet?
Yeah, I would say maybe I'll go, and then I would love to hear you.
Like, speak directly to them,
Yeah,
like
okay.
through here. But like, this is you. Who are you? This message is for you.
I would say no matter where you're at on your journey, where you're at in your life, like you have a story inside of you that is very unique to you. Nobody else in the world has your previous life experiences and has the future that you have. And so you're in a very unique spot right at this very moment. Don't think about the past. Don't wish you would have started sooner, but also don't wait till tomorrow. Do something today. Set the date today, burn the boats, go all in and decide to make it happen. But then even further than that, like, don't question what content you're going to create. You shouldn't be creating any content. You should be focusing on creating your most beautiful, magical life that you could ever freaking imagine. And then from there, find a way to just document that experience. And you're going to inspire so many people along the way. And you're going to begin to attract business to you that you didn't even imagine you could, because you're showing up as that authentic version of you and you're just living your life. That's how you need to do it.
Amen.
Sold. I'm in.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes. And
I'm going to take that clip and make that into a short form and send that to you. We're going to edit it beautifully.
Awesome.
You should be putting that everywhere.
Yes. And I would also say definitely come from a place of service. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about, like the publicity or the likes or the views. Just come from a place of serving your viewers, even if it's just one listener, and just know that you're helping that one person possibly change his or her life. Just come from that place of service. I would say that's the biggest thing I would say to you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Guys, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks for those words of wisdom. I think that we ended on a really great note there.
Yes.
Guys, what I want to encourage you as listeners is the fact that you're hearing my voice right now means that there was something in this that spoke to you, that connected with you, that tells you that you need to do something right now. Check out the show notes. Find Jamie, find Steve on social media. And most importantly, make sure that you don't just passively watch. Get engaged. Comment on their stuff. Ask them questions. And that engagement is what leads to making beautiful connections like I did with them and having this conversation right now. So I highly encourage, make social media not a passive experience, but an engaging, interactive one. It'll make it so much more worth your time. That's it. I'm going to wrap this up and I'll see you next week.